Frank coming or?
Yeah, Frank's
He's
on.
Oh, he's on?
He's on.
Oh, you leaving?
Frank's up there. Pete's in here. Corey's in here. Chuck's in here, and we have Laura on there. So everybody's here. We have Joy and Ken here, and we have Jessica and myself. So we're ready to roll.
Okay, ready to roll?
Do you want to talk a little bit about where we are and what you perceive we need to do in the next 3 sessions tonight and then next Tuesday, Wednesday?
Yeah, and so we put together a schedule that outlines, the things that we need to accomplish, items that we need to go over so that we get to the end. Yes.
Okay.
So, these next couple of meetings will be a sprint,
Nice. So,
particularly next, Tuesday, Thursday. We're hoping that, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Wednesday. It's Wednesday next week.
Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday next week. We're hoping by the end of Wednesday that we have wrapped up.
Good.
Yes. So, tonight we're going to review some, enterprise funds, the county fee schedule. We're going to look at, our franchise fees as well as our impact fees. Then next Tuesday will be, pretty,
What's the start time for next Tuesday?
Double check that. I believe next Tuesday's at 4 to 7.
Can you call me if you change it?
Yeah.
Cause I don't check my phone all the time. Sometimes it's not even on.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
so next Tuesday will be a pretty heavy day. We need to go over, salary increases, the results of comp study. We want to talk about health benefits,
Sure.
what we're hearing from our agent,
Mhm.
as well as the LEF's retirement plan potentially for EMS,
Mhm.
paramedics.
So we're going, that's gonna be a pretty long night. But,
Yeah.
So
So-
until,
4 to
Yeah.
7.
4 to
is
until.
what
yeah, and if we have to bleed some over to the next night, we can.
Yeah. Board of Ed, we're hoping that we can wrap that up on next Tuesday.
Laura says no problem.
I did
You ever
send,
find a number from the state? We still don't.
So.
Yeah, hang on 1 second, I can get that.
Sorry.
that's something.
I didn't mean-
What I was gonna say is I sent, your follow-up questions to Sarah
Oh,
Jones.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Haven't heard anything back yet, so.
No, you won't.
You have
So,
some information?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Kerwin is, they're correct, and we knew this, that our Kerwin is higher than our MOE. So that change, doesn't affect us. So we really are at that 45.9 is the spreadsheet that Michael gave me yesterday.
Perfect.
Okay,
And then we sent your information over to them as far as questions. We have not gotten any feedback from them yet. So, we will get that to you when or if we get it, but then at some point you have all the information and I think you got a lot of good information the other night with Sarah and Dr. Einhorn.
Yeah.
You think?
And then, well, I mean, then you'll be able to make your decisions. So,
Yeah.
Good.
okay. We want to next Tuesday review of capital projects, fund and prioritize those requests.
Mhm.
Review, we have some grant revenues that we should review on Tuesday also. That won't take very much time. And then if next Wednesday, again, we'll tackle whatever's left from Tuesday. And that will, again, will be the day that we wrap up. We want to look at where we are at that point, where we are budget wise, what the gap is. Talk about the capital outlay budget, modification for fiscal year 22, whether or not we can move, we feel confident that we can move the money into 22 that we talked about.
That was
And
Very
review property tax revenues,
Correct.
because that's,
great team.
a place that we're gonna be looking to.
What
Yeah.
council wants to do with the property revenue with regard to the Board of Education in
Yes.
particular.
in particular.
Right. And just confirm what you want to do with the public safety 1 cent and the 1%.
That's the schedule.
So that's the schedule. There is, still quite a bit of work to get done. Right now, the budget is scheduled for introduction on April 12th. We do want to ask if there would be consideration to declare a special legislative day for April 19th and just come in for a meeting just to introduce the budget, to give Ken and Joy an extra week to kind of pull all the final numbers together.
April 19th.
I could support us coming in the day after my birthday.
Okay.
We'll have a cupcake for you.
Unfortunately, and you don't necessarily need me for introduction of the budget, but my road trips are starting and I'm going to be in Montgomery and Harford County on that day. But if it's just introduction, if I wasn't there, that's probably okay.
Here's a majority race at home. For one person. You need the majority to hold the meeting in one person race at home. I
19th works for me.
I can make it.
Chuck,
I'll make it.
okay.
Okay.
We have a
What time?
So we have a majority, so it would be a 6 o'clock meeting.
And I think I could probably, if you need me to call in for some reason right when you do it, I can, because that meeting, we're probably going to do dinner with them, but the meeting's not till 7:30. So
Okay.
you could probably get me for 5 or 10 minutes if need be. If it's not necessary, then that's fine.
I envision we'll just do the same thing as Angela did with regard to the PowerPoint. We'll just walk through a PowerPoint and you all are, say, at least one of you introduce it.
You're gonna need one person race at home.
Okay, good. And
Okay,
then that will be all you're doing that night, right?
Correct.
So it'll be very quick.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
You're very much.
That
Thank you.
actually helps
we appreciate it.
that a lot.
Sounds good.
All right,
Okay.
Joy, you're gonna take off here?
Okay, we'll take off. So the first thing you wanted to talk about, we wanted to quickly review the recreation department's budgets,
Community center.
Now,
and all
do they-
community center
do they have-
and golf.
They
Yeah,
have,
they have the,
They have, everybody, yeah, I think,
okay. Laura,
Email.
Frank, you're with us?
yeah, I emailed it to them and it's in Greenwich, yes.
Perfect.
okay, so it's the first,
Spreadsheet?
yeah, well, yes, the first spreadsheet, and there's some supporting documents behind it also. So if we focus on the community center first, their revenues in total are $1,134,000, but if we take out the county appropriation, their revenues, then, it's about $800,000. What I'd like to say is something that Preston actually let everybody know as well last time he was here, is that the community center seems to be, their reliance on the general fund seems to be declining over time. It's not a huge decline, but it is going in the right direction.
Do you have
So,
that? Do you have a track of that? I know at one time we had a track of that.
We'll look at that.
well, I can tell you that fiscal year 22,
Okay.
the difference was $416,000.
From 21 to 22.
Uh,
Budget.
no, the amount that the county had to contribute was 416,000. Yeah.
So for 20.
And so-
that's
And I
about
do
20.
remember it used to be well over $500,000.
116,000.
And so there is a wild card here, and that's, we're still working on the salaries, so the
Okay.
number might change it. They're gonna change it a little bit. But this is where they sit right now. It appears that they're relying on the county less, and that's a good thing.
That is good.
Until you get to the bottom of the page and the golf course seems to be going the wrong direction.
Okay, so,
The pumping and hauling will go away for the community center now at least.
right,
Yes, right.
How much
so,
has that been costing us a year, out of
Yeah, I don't
curiosity?
know. I was just looking for that, but it's.
so it's kind of
But
complicated.
that'd be baked into this
Yeah.
operating expenses number, this 500,000 number, I guess, right?
So this, for fiscal year 23, we need to give them $483,000 to balance their budget. We're talking about the golf course, right?
No,
I'm sorry, where are
I
you?
had shared with them that the community center no longer has to pump and
Oh,
haul,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
which was an
Okay.
expense, and we don't know what that expense
Okay.
was from this sheet,
No,
but
no, you
there
can't
is a
tell from this.
savings for that anyway.
Yeah, there will be a savings from that. I'm sorry, I thought we had moved this.
No, you're good. You can move on. I guess.
Okay,
Okay.
does anybody have any
I
questions?
mean,
Are you okay, Frank and Laura, moving on to the golf course?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the golf course number.
Okay, well,
Well,
talk about that.
we can talk about that. So this, for fiscal year 23, the amount that we need to give them to balance their budget is $483,000. Fiscal year 22, we had to give them about 1.9 million. But that's, because we had that large project for the pavilion,
Irrigation.
the irrigation project in there.
Right.
So,
We need to go
If you
back
look-
further than that because I thought at one point we were close to zero on them.
well, let's see. I might be able to tell you what 21 was.
airport, what's the risk off?
Were we not putting any capital investment into it back then? Because if you look at this is, the appropriation is almost equal to the capital investment too.
So back in 1920,
True.
and back in 2021, we had to give them $331,000 of support.
You have 20?
No, I don't. That's as far back as I have them.
Is it listed on on this table here, the
Um,
county appropriation?
it should be, I think, in the revenue section. In the revenue section, you'll be able to see.
Yeah.
You're quite right, Corey. What the support is.
Yeah, so back in like 16, it was 126,000. 18 was 419. 2020 was only 3,100. So they were really, really close.
Yeah, they were, and then popped up in 21, and then got really large in 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine the cafe was an opportunity that was starting to work out, and then due to the operators leaving, we got to change some things up. But Rich has got a lot of great. I'm not worried about the golf course. The amount of money that we put into that place is an investment that's going to pay dividends for a long time. Rich has done some great things.
I would agree with that, but I'm not so sure. I'd like to talk to Rick a little bit and see where the jump is a little bit here. So, I'd like just to know a little bit more about it. He hasn't really brought to our attention. I've been into several meetings and haven't really brought too much to our attention in as far as green fees and turnouts and stuff like that. Then I don't know if the COVID thing hurt us a little bit.
Well, I'm talking about the expenses though. I mean, they got 950,000 in salaries and 622 in operating expenses. Maybe, we need to look at that. I'm not seeing any detail of that.
Right.
So I would like,
Right.
for somebody in the finance department to look at what their expenses are and see if there can be anything reduced so that it's not quite as big. Revenues are what they are.
Right.
Expenses we could be cut.
It's actually the book there, right?
Hmm.
The details in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know where
I think
what number the county appropriation is listed.
It's Corey, it's on that 77.3
It's
and it's the second to the last line, transfer GF.
77.3.
I don't have 77.3.
I don't have a 77.
That's the page number she's
Oh,
referencing.
Yeah,
in the big book.
7.3.
Oh, 77. Oh, okay.
Big
Yeah.
book.
Oh, so it means 4950, right? General fund, okay, 4950.
So are
Under
there
general
any
fund transfer.
big changes?
So if you look, you can go line by line in the detail on
Yeah.
77.1.
Yeah.
Yes. You can
We can
see.
look
Concession. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so
concessions.
salaries, part-time's going up a lot.
Right,
So
but that's because
Minimum wage.
Because of offering lessons.
well, yeah, he wants to hire a golf pro.
Health fund, down, professional fees. 25% in building equipment maintenance,
I'm
already in building.
I'm probably where, I mean, because before we did that big water project out there, the general fund transfers were somewhat minimum. I mean, it was 419 in 2018. There's nothing listed for 2019. I don't know why. That's blank. See that? And then 2020 says 3,100. I don't know whether that's right or not, but
The biggest ticket items from
Then
FY 22 to 23 are, the equipment lease for golf carts.
Mhm.
That went way up,
is that from 20 to 20?
22 to 23.
What about, what happened between 20 and 21? Because 2020, it was 3,100, but then 21, it was 330,000.
Right.
So what happened between that span of time that it jumped up from a 3,100 transfer to over 300,000?
We can dig into this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but, and then the concession stand was the other
Hear
big
that?
one this
See
year.
that big spike right there between those 2 years?
Yep.
But before that, he was trending along pretty good. And I think that 1.8 is right. I think that is that water, that irrigation system. And that was the bunker. Was it the bunker then?
Did the bunker.
Maybe is the bunkers just 20 to 21? Is that what we did? We did all the bunkers. Remember he put it before the
Yeah.
20. He
It looks
put
like-
that sand, then put a drain in the bunkers, and that new type of sand where
Drain.
the drain straight through.
So you can see that, his capital outlay in 20 is about 400,000. And in 21 he has hardly any.
Capital outlay, you saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a big driver in the current year too.
That's a big budget. Yeah.
I guess just talk to them and see if there's any place where they can cut anything, every little bit helps. And we've already been, I can't remember, have we already been through their capital outlay?
Yeah.
Yes, we did, absolutely.
So I mean, I can pull them in and we can scrutinize it. We'll do it with Chuck, Frank, you both, well, they're not in here, but you guys are on the golf board. We can have a conversation with them if you like.
So right now, we're looking to give them almost $500,000.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
okay. The only other, are we, okay,
And so they had a conversation. I don't know what too much.
Yeah. I wanted to bring to your attention the CIP budget for the recreation department. The only, that is,
Got a fresh page in your packet today.
Well, before we totally leave the golf course, there have been just for Joy's benefit, there have been conversations over the years to figure out whether the community center should be an enterprise fund. And the golf course, we really didn't talk about whether it should be an enterprise fund because it was getting so much closer. But if they're not going to be self-sustaining, if they're going to require these transfers every year in this amount, the question is, should they be retained as enterprise funds? There was something with the community center and some financing a long time ago that we did that was kind of different on the books, and I don't know whether Joy has dug into that or whether Angela filled you in on why we needed to keep it as an enterprise fund, even though we do the transfers every year. But the golf course, I don't think we've ever talked about. So I guess we just need to look at long term, if we think it's going to get back to more self-sustaining. And it's not a this year decision, but it's just something to put a pin in as you next year and when to new council, whether it's appropriate.
I think the guiding principle that I'm under the impression of following with the council is that we want to try to make our enterprise funds solvent, get them to black, identify what the gap or is owed back to the general fund is and push in that direction. And that's what we're gonna try to do. I know that I've talked to Rich a number of times and and council has approved of some major capital investments in the golf course that we believe that, you believe that there'll be return on investment, but I think the goal is to get it solvent.
Right. So
Um,
how many years do you give it before you say,
Well,
it's not
that's
gonna be
what-
solid?
Probably
Once we get the budget done, we're
conversation for
gonna,
another day.
it is,
Yeah,
we wanna forecast that.
yeah,
Because if you don't set targets,
sure.
Right. So this is Joy's first year. And so some of us, we've been around a little longer than she has. So that's why I just wanted to mention it so that's something you can look out for in the future, Joy.
Thank you so much, Laura. Okay, the only piece of other business for the recreation department, again, if you take a quick look at the CIP budget.
Okay.
Preston has been asked to earmark $1 million.
Mhm.
He anticipates being able to tap into some grant revenues again in fiscal year 23. So the $1 million that's listed would be totally paid for by grant. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He-
and maybe part of that would be a small playground in Tillman, right?
Why are you pushing that so much, county manager?
Because we've been hearing from
Who was out
constituents
there?
about it.
You got
They have
a
three
vested interest
We
in
got
Tillman?
three. There are three county councilmen that
Three.
keep knocking on my head.
Got three.
Brings it up every turn. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Um, I presume, is this all that cyclical park and playground equipment that's expiring?
Well, we gotta deal with that because we got like 6 playgrounds
Yeah,
Well, I think-
expiring.
or is this like actual development of the Oxford Conservation Park, which is we've hardly touched or something?
I thought the gymnasium.
TBD,
Yes.
right, not designated yet, just a placeholder.
I think that Preston believes he's gonna be able to get another grant for $1 million that he got this. And so, and the only thing that we did talk about is that one piece, but the rest is, I think, TBD.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when somebody's promising grant funding to backfill, it's easy to say yes.
And if we didn't get grant funding, we can change our minds, right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is to talk about county fees, this county fee schedule.
So there's 3 documents associated with fees. The first one is this one that's kind of an eye exam with a small print.
This should be towards the back of your packet.
Hold it up. Okay. Okay,
Oh, it's like the last page, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right, that one that just is holding up there.
Second, the last and the
Yeah,
second to
sorry.
last, third to last. Oh, yeah, there's 2 pages.
Okay. Is the first one, we're planning off of?
Right.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
And so what this schedule does, just lays down in columns, the fee schedule for FY 22, a proposed FY 23 fee schedule in the second column, and then just calculated increases relative to the prior year, the percentage increase. So, big picture, only a few departments are proposing an increase in fees. We received new fees proposed for 23 from Miguel for the planning office. Most other fees remain unchanged, with the exception of boat ramp fees and landings, and some of the weed maintenance fees, most of which don't really have too much impact on bottom line from revenue standpoint. Public Works reinvented their fee schedule somewhat, so they attempted to simplify it. So as you get, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages deep into it, you'll see where the year-to-year comparison starts to fall apart because they restructured their fees in an effort to simplify them. So it's not really a clean apples to apples comparison from FY 22 to 23, but nevertheless, you see the old fee schedule and the new fee schedule.
Which
Where-
department are you on
where
now, Ken?
Where you on now?
Public
Those
Works.
are for, public works and the roads, basically the roads.
Public Works and Roads.
So it's,
Page number.
1, 2, 3, 5 pages deep in this schedule.
It'll be second to the last page, right?
Right. Or
Roads.
third.
Road signs.
Third.
Okay, road signs. So we want to right away, a new, fee for right away, is that right? Assess, prepare to call for inspections and work performed in county right of ways. That's gonna be a new one. Is that right? Am I reading this correct? Currently, there's no fee for that?
Where you read that?
He's, Corey's on the second to last page.
Right there.
Be the third.
That's right, that says right
page, I'm
here.
sorry.
Compliance, it's a assessed fee for failure to call for inspection for work performed in county right of way. And you look at 2022, there's no amount in there. So I'm asking, is this a new fee that we're imposing?
And under which department is that? What's it say, the header?
It should be roads.
It's under, violations.
Let me go back to violations.
Yeah,
It's under
violations. Right.
Yeah, you go back to the other page, it's under violations. I don't know, we've got a violations department, so it must be Department of Violations. So this has to fall underneath roads, right?
I think what Warren's probably saying is if you don't call in for
Yeah.
the permit on the culverts, he's gonna fine you $200.
Well, if any work that's performed in the right of way. So this could be assessed to Verizon, could be assessed to any subcontractor working in the right of way.
What did Corey? Isn't that right? Isn't that what came out of Verizon had punctured a few culverts, and we had found out about it on the road?
Right.
They did that a number of times.
So that's the only fee increase for, like we said, compliance with
That's-
fees and such failure.
That's the new one, okay?
Looks like it's new.
So are we gonna go through every fee for every department, or how are we gonna handle this?
Well, that wasn't my intent, but I figured I'd show kind of what the schedule looked like on that document. And then you go to a second document that shows a sensitivity analysis. That's the one that's in landscape view.
Where's that?
Is that in the back too?
Oh, I see it. Just before it. The 2 pages
Right.
before.
Right, so there's only a handful of fees, those being in zoning, that really have, that are changed from 22 to 23. And that page
Oh, that's good.
calculates analytically, if you were to hold volume, yeah, Corey? Sorry.
I thought we agreed the other night that we were going to 325 and 225 respectively in the villages for the sanitation.
I might need to look back at Ray's slides. I might.
It was on the slide, we took a vote, it goes
Yeah.
to 325.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta check on that.
We need to make sure we line that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do see, looking through this, guys, I do see that I really feel good about Brent not raising his fees,
Right.
okay?
Well, we looked at his department and about 73% of his revenue is derived now from fees. So it's a pretty good amount that he gets from fees
Mhm.
directly to do what he does. So that leaves a gap of like 20-some%
Mhm.
on the general taxpayer. So there probably isn't room for the building inspector to raise fees, but conversely, the planning and zoning area is only about 30-some%.
Mhm.
I understand that, but this is me, and people are gonna agree with this. The survey with what we did, hiring 2 people to take care of these departments, I'd rather see the fees, be a little bit more sensitive until we are up to par on doing the job, because right now we're not doing the job.
Hold off on it.
That,
We're hiring people, it's gonna cost more money and.
I know that,
But the
that's
general
my
tax,
feeling.
right, but the general taxpayer is subsidizing. They have to be paid. So your question is, are they paid by the person who isn't getting work done, the general taxpayer, that we have to raise taxes on or charge taxes on, or are you going to charge it to the people who are utilizing the service? Regardless, I agree with you, the customer service needs to be better, but it's not fair. The expense has to be paid. So who's going to pay it? All of our taxpayers or the people who are actually utilizing the service?
Well, we're both right. I'm just not agreeing on raising fees. I'm just not.
Okay, well,
Not in those two departments. Not this year. I want those two departments to uprun, and I don't want people calling me every day that our customer service sucks.
okay, so how
And-
about the people that aren't upgrading their homes and doing all this stuff? How about if they call you and say, why are you charging me, an extra $50 for every taxpayer?
You know what
Because
I'm going to tell them? I'm going to say, because we've done fix it the department. When you go in there, you can get a permit in 2 weeks now, and it doesn't
Okay,
take
the
13
vast
weeks.
majority of our population doesn't need to get those permits, and it's just not, it's
Yeah,
a
they
sense
do.
of fairness. It's a sense of
I
fairness.
understand. I
Right.
understand.
Charging the general taxpayer, and again, it's like an enterprise fund. They're subsidizing work that they're not utilizing. It's not fair.
What page are you talking about?
So this is a special page that, looks
Special.
like this.
Yeah.
And this is, so the only reason this
Yep.
came about.
Yep.
Because, Miguel wasn't going to raise the fees, but he did talk about this, in the consultant report they did.
Mhm.
The discussion about that. So,
What's that entitled?
change in fee sensitivity analysis, 22 to 23.
Mhm.
So, I actually had asked Miguel to address it so the council can make a decision.
Right. Now, I understand, I'm not, I'm just saying my piece, that's all. I just feel more comfortable.
Yep.
And Laura, I agree with you on all aspects, but, this is the world I live in Talbot County, and it's bad over there. It's bad, and we're fixing things now as
And
we
it's
speak.
almost a conflict of interest for you. It's great that you understand it. I worked with,
There's no conflict of interest.
well,
He's not
What do
getting,
I do?
a little bit. It is, and I got feedback from people too. When I had the print shop, I did a lot of architectural prints, and I heard it, and I hear about the architectural, when it's got the stamp on it and all that kind of stuff. I don't disagree. Customer service needs to be fixed and upgraded and all that. My problem is broader than that. It's, we know what we need to do to the department. The question is, who's going to pay for it? The general taxpayer who's not utilizing it, or the people who are utilizing it? I think that's really our choice. And I think it's time to do some fee increases. Is this the right amount? I'm not sure. I guess we have to trust our department head.
Right.
How
Right.
far does this get us? Clay, you said this only.
wait,
47.
real quick, I'm sorry, because we already did the ice rink before. Do I need to go back and resend my votes on that because my kids play hockey and I pay for ice skating?
No,
What?
of course not. That's not the point.
I
But
want to stay.
sometimes there's over involvement. It's also not your profession either. And again, I'm giving kudos to the fact that Chuck understands it because he's in that profession, as did Dirk when he was on the council. And I have a little bit also from a lot of the print work that I did on these architectural things that they went and took over to the county. And I heard a lot of stories myself. Nobody disagrees with the problems over there. It's a matter of who is the responsible party to make this department a little more self-sufficient. And personally, I think it's the people who are going in and getting the permits and not the general taxpayer.
Chuck, how are you seeing our fees in compared to like Queen Anne's County?
So what I've heard and what I've sensed, I'm saying this in a broad way. They don't mind the fee. They want the service, and they're pissed because they don't get the service. They only, complain about the fees because they're not getting the service. So if we can get the service straight, then we can raise the fees. That's kind of my point.
Can I ask this, because I've heard that for a number of years, but
Yeah.
when I asked to see like you have a complaint box,
Right.
and when I asked to see the complaint in writing, no one could ever produce it to me.
Mhm.
I can never actually go to a complaint box or go to a screen where a customer types in a complaint, had to wait 120 days, paid the money,
Right.
had to have 3 inspections. I've never see that.
Right.
I never can go to and see the narrative of the complaint. I hear what you're saying, but no one else in this room can go to it and pull it up and look at it.
That's an excellent point. And Director Stan, we've been talking about this for a long time. Like, I want to be able to see how long these permits are sitting in the queue.
Exactly.
Because I've got a friend who called me at 127 days. He called me at 90 days. After 90 days, he called me every week. I didn't take the time to beat up Brent every week with an email. I could have, but I mean,
And we've
Yeah.
seen some of those. We've seen some of those charts before. It's been a couple of years where they actually get stuck, and it's not necessarily us. Sometimes it's environmental health, which is Ann Morse's area.
That's right.
So
That's
it's not always us. And again, it's been a few years since I've seen that report. But Corey, you remember we've seen these reports several times, and it wasn't.
Brent actually made
He
a table. He did his own table. You know, he tracked it himself. There was a lot of work involved in that. So, I don't mind the fees, but to your point, and it's probably a broader question for some down the road, is to develop. I thought we did a kiosk where they could type right into it at one time.
There is.
Yeah, the
We
kiosk.
have it, and now it's OpenGov.
Okay, fine.
It's actually going well.
I thought there was a kiosk. So
Feedback.
I need to see the complaint. I mean, in order for me to react to it and to respond to it, I need to actually see the complaint. You know, they keep on saying we got problems on there, it's breaking down, and they're not getting things done, the customer service is poor. Where's the complaint?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so I would, you know, my year and whatever it's been since I've been in this role, not knowing anything before I stepped in here,
Mhm.
and meeting with a number of architects and a number of engineers and others about planning and zoning, and meeting with Miguel and meeting with Brent and meeting with all of them. We have a challenge over there, and it's documented that we have challenges, and we're addressing them. That's what we did this whole consultant report about. That's why we did OpenGov. We are actually addressing these things, and it is getting better, and it will get better. But there is we do have problems out there, no doubt about it.
I guess every department does.
Right,
Let's
but,
face it.
You know, 3 Ps, processes. This is an area we're working to
Yeah.
make our processes
Yeah,
better.
so I don't think you're gonna ever get a complaint-free department. It doesn't exist. Because someone's not gonna like the fact that they were told
I
no,
understand
they
that.
can't bring
I
the
understand.
shed over here, or they can't, you know, or they have to follow the guideline that they don't like, so they're gonna be upset. So you're never gonna have a complaint-free department. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So if the
Right.
complaints are legitimate complaints that Miguel and Brent and the staff up here are addressing, that's what I want to see. And I want to see the mitigation
in
time.
their defense,
Yeah.
they have been working great with the complaints that I've come.
Okay.
They've been working great.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want you all to understand one thing. When Corey Pack goes in there with his application and 2 checks, one for permit inspection and then one for the health department.
Mhm.
Okay, and you go in and hand that to Grace. Okay, the perception of you, the client, is you're calling Grace, where's my permit? When people think, I'm just helping you understand.
Right.
When you call up and say, where's my permit? They don't care that Miguel hasn't done his work, Ann's not done her work. And all they want to know is Grace, I don't care whose fault it is and why it's taken 13 weeks to get my permit. I want to know from you, when am I getting my permit? So when you hand that money to Grace, she's responsible in a sense to the homeowner that she is responsible for getting that permit. So what I've tried to explain a little bit to Clay is who's responsible for the person that says, hey, I've got your permit.
And we are working through that, and we've implemented.
Right. I'm just kind of telling you.
And we have a plan to continue to make it better.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we have implemented
We
things
have.
to improve things.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and again, you're not gonna, I mean, you know, my thing when I was running the office is the mitigation chart, you know, because you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
How is it mitigated? And
Mhm.
what's the time frame in order for it to be resolved?
Yeah. I
And
agree.
so,
with you.
and we had to ask, some things had to be escalated up because they were
Mhm.
policy decisions that I don't write policy.
Yeah.
So,
So I'd
No,
like to call the question. The department, we're working on it. It needs to be better. The question is, who pays for the lousy department? The people who are using it or the general taxpayer? That's the question. We can sit here and go back and forth about what needs to be improved. And I think we all agree on that and we're working on it. The question about the fees is who subsidizes it? That's the question that I think we have.
Laura, when you calculate that, tell me how you calculate that. So are we trying to subsidize, are we trying to have the permit fees cover that entire department, or are
No,
we,
but they're only at 25%. So if this one, if you look at the page before,
of the permitting department should we be covering?
well,
That's a
so
good
Brent
question.
didn't. If Clay just gave us those numbers. You said Brent was more at like 2/3 or 3/4, and planning and zoning is only at 25% cost recovery ratio. We got to do better than that. It's really, really low.
Why don't we throw out the short-term rental review board and expedite short-term rental permits, pool permits, and come up with a way to make all of those much faster to reduce the cost to the community and the benefits of the community. Because if you put a pool in, or a patio.
Well, right.
Like
Look,
that.
that's a separate conversation. We're trying to have apples to
No,
apples.
I'm trying to reduce costs.
I don't think there's any real cost to the,
Short-term.
we don't pay the short-term rental review board
Well, we have
themselves.
there, right? So we've got attorneys sitting through those meetings, so that's being subsidized.
Okay, can we stick with one topic? It's a question of whether or not you want general taxpayer to subsidize something.
That's all the same department.
So more specifically, I just need, so
In those meetings as well.
Frank,
The
Frank
question is
raises
whether we're not raising fees, and I think we need to stick to the topic. Are we raising fees? And we need to vote on that. We need to figure out the 5 council members who wants to raise fees and how much.
So there is a good policy
Raising-
question that would,
I'm not going to make a vote until I know what we're doing, what the goal is.
It has
So
nothing
are
to do
we-
with short-term rental review board right now, though.
That whole department. Because you've got a receptionist in there, you've got people who sit there with Susan DuPont while she's reviewing them. That person's not pushing out an application, so there's a charge for that hourly cost. So
But
yeah, it is.
That's not our biggest problem here. We're talking about.
But that's
permits
a
department.
department that's an area that's costing this department a lot of money. So if you want to reduce your costs, then you start reducing you
So-
speed things
So
up.
this issue, Frank, this issue existed long before we had the short-term rental review board, and we had the same conversation 4 years ago before you were on the council, and 6 years ago, and 8 years ago. This is an ongoing issue with how much fees should be cost recovered. Fine, if you want to wrap in short-term rental review board, but this issue that we're talking about right now is it slightly worse because of that? But this issue existed before we ever had a short-term rental review board, and we've had this conversation for the last 12 years before you were here, before Pete was here. Corey remembers, and
That's fine, but I'm not going to shoot from the hip here and just.
we're not. We had our department head go through. We
Which
had our department head go through and
Yeah,
give
you
us
fine with the fee
a
rate?
recommendation.
The 47,000.
No.
Okay.
So I think that the question is, are we supporting the proposed fee schedule with the exception of the sanitary district fees that Corey?
Yeah, they weren't.
They
weren't
adjusted, yeah.
Yeah.
With those adjustments,
Yeah.
I'm ready to support the staff recommendation on these with those exceptions.
so that's one. You
Yes.
supported
Yeah, I'm with that.
2, you're against
I'm
it,
against it.
okay, and you supported Laura. That's
Yes.
3, Frank,
I'm against it because I haven't been given the information. I want to know what it costs for each of these groups in there and what they're doing. I just feel like arbitrarily
we were recommending.
raised.
So, we can forensically go in and go to the department and see what they do and what they don't do and where you can save money. But specifically, we just have a request for fee adjustment.
Yep.
And this is in particular, the planning department, which would raise $47,327 in fees. It's a very modest amount. But it does help alleviate the fee it helps alleviate the burden for the general public and you paying for your service. But, we have 3.
Yeah, we've
We got
got
3. Yeah, let's move on.
Whatever.
Let's move on.
Okay, and so the entire schedule is approved.
Yeah.
But you have to
With the
modify
correction.
There's a lot of corrections on
the
that.
sewer fees that the council approved.
325.
Tuesday.
I have a question, but I'm afraid.
Well, I
So I would-
started. I started.
I know you did.
I
know you did.
started. I apologize.
I would
I
text my
apologize.
question in later, because I have a question, but I don't want to ask it. I'm not.
Okay, Joy.
Go ahead, Joy.
All right. Okay, next up, we want to talk about franchise fees.
What's the number?
Where are we?
Okay, franchise fees. And that, so.
Romans came up with this beautiful concept. Actually, the Greeks did.
You're right.
Hold up.
Okay, so
Franchise.
there,
You say franchise or impact?
franchise,
Franchise.
and it starts with the schedule that looks like this.
Okay, that's what it starts with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking something.
Actually, yeah, numbers first. Legion, right?
Yep, okay, got it.
Impact fees.
This is,
It's right in the middle.
Yeah.
North.
Middle.
Frank
Okay.
and Laura, did you find it?
Yes,
No.
Okay, so it. Can you
right
see-
before the airport.
You put it right in front of the owl.
Can you see Frank?
is that clean?
Right before the airport. Got it. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Got cable fees,
right, so these are, yeah,
MTTV fees, airport fees, right before.
It's right after MCTV.
Right after MTTV. Hold on. MTTV.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh,
Bingo.
MTTV. Okay, TV.
It was something.
Treasure hunt.
No pay. Knock it off, beautiful thing. Huh?
You ain't kidding.
So the first schedule is a summary of the fees that we've collected since fiscal year 21 and the uses that we had outlined for them. So at the end of fiscal year 21, we had about $751,000 worth of fees available. They've accumulated
Mm-hmm.
and
Quite nicely.
quite nicely.
Mhm.
And what we said we would do is charge part of the first installment of the,
Broadband.
thank you, broadband
Mm-hmm.
initiative against it. And as well as, we also normally use those fees to cover MCTV and Granicus.
Right.
So that left us a balance of $179,000. And then rolling forward, our revenues projection for this year is about $232,000. And again, we're intending to use the fees to cover MCTV and Granicus. I think there was a discussion about using the fees to cover the broadband match again,
Yeah,
but we decided, so it's,
So out of this, so if you take this, this is a $3 million obligation for the Reconnect program.
Yep.
That was the initial piece. And so it paid for the first two installments, and the rest will be paid out of CIP,
yes,
which is identified in the CIP.
it is identified in the CIP.
But wasn't some of the money set aside for county side grants
It used to be.
until we started the broadband.
until we're wiping it all out again, so there's no more county side grants.
Well, so you're gonna end up with 232 and $110,000 a year going to MCTV. So there's a
So
gap between the two would be available for council
So
discretion.
what's available county side grants this year?
We're projecting that we should have $300,000 available.
Is that right?
That's what the math says. We're bringing in the projected revenues of 232. I think that's probably close.
Okay.
And the expenses that we identified were again, MCTV's budget
Okay.
and to cover, I think we said $10,000 worth of grants.
Right, so if we're moving the broadband match to CIP, where is that money in CIP coming from? Is that simply a general fund transfer?
It would be a general fund.
Yeah.
Was anyone there when this started?
But yeah, it would have to come
I
from
think the
general fund.
plan was to do that, but I don't know what the funding source is. We'll have to do that when we
Yeah.
get, we're prepping the CIP for you for
Yeah. For next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
No question. We just
I-
approved the $1.75 million out of ARPA for broadband. However, could we use some of this, which would then free up a little bit more of our $7.2 million to use for something else in the community, since an appropriate use, and we decided this several years ago, an appropriate use of these franchise fees was to fund our broadband. Would it make sense to take $100,000 or $200,000 out of the available 300 and reduce, the 1.75 out of ARPA, use some of this, and that would free up a little bit of money to scatter somewhere else in the community?
So just understand 1.75 is not tied to the
Thank you.
reconnect program. This is
No.
only the reconnect program.
Right. So the 3 million, we identified as a county fund match for the broadband program. And we had identified a funding source for it, which was here in the franchise fees. And so I'm not real comfortable not redesignating this funds away from broadband.
So we cannot, okay, so this is something that I want to, we cannot use ARPA funds without amending the memorandum of understanding with Eastern Utilities. We cannot use American Rescue Plan funds for the model we're using for the Reconnect program because it's a cost recovery model.
It is.
We're actually paying ourselves back over a 6-year period.
Yes.
So we can't use ARA funds for that piece of it. Only the piece after the reconnect.
And I thought that our mechanism for paying ourselves back on this was using the franchise fees rather than using general fund transfers.
This is, I have to get clarity on it.
We just looked at the agreement the other day. Yeah, can look at it.
And we'll be prepared to have that conversation in detail with you on Tuesday,
Right,
and then we can revisit that.
we can, but clearly there's not, there won't be enough money to cover.
We'd be looking at maybe a 10-year recovery or something
Right,
like that.
yeah.
Takes 10 years, it takes 10 years, but I just think that's
So we'll go over that. So if nothing is done, yes, Corey, there's 300 and some $1,000 there.
Okay, that was 22 projection. I'm
Right.
hoping I hit a 23, and I don't. The numbers are so in 2023 earnings projected through the franchise fee is 232.
Right.
You take out 120 for MCTV and
Right.
for Granicus, can't leave you 430. I don't. I'm
Well,
bad at math, but I don't think
so-
that.
that's a
I'm not-
cumulative figure.
I'm not
That
that
413 is a cumulative figure.
Right, you have to start with a 301.
I have to start with the 301.
Yeah, the balance
Plus-
from
yeah.
2022.
232 and then
Roll.
520.
Right,
So plus
301
those-
plus 232 minus 120 gets you 413.
Not that way, but I can do that.
Is there anything, I mean, I agree. I think these franchise fees really need to stay in this bucket and not just go back into doing these community grants again. Next council can figure out what they want to do with it once we've solidified, and spent down our ARPA funds and all that. Is there anything else in the budget, if we don't want to leave a big balance of 300,000 sitting there right now? Is there anything else appropriate in our budget, like MCTV, that's a good use? Pardon?
Enhancing MCTV. I mean, there are things that we could do, upgrading equipment and helping them build a studio, doing more interactive stuff with the county like Queen Anne's County does. I mean, there are opportunities to up our game.
And don't
3-1.
lose sight that this money was to go back into the community, Laura. It wasn't just these aren't just feel good projects. This money was to help out the community. These are those PIC fees, the public information and government fees that they have to pay. And so when the council first came up with this took a long time to draw this contract out, if I remember right, was to find out some way to put this money back into the community. So that's
But remember too, that what is on the table, at least for this year,
right.
is ARPA funding in the amount of $500,000 for nonprofits. So we are actually putting more grant funds out into
True.
the community.
That's
through
very
ARPA
true.
than we went through this.
Right.
So we've got at least in the short term a backfill for that.
You're right. So yeah.
I don't have that ARPA list with me, so but there was some grant money sitting
Yeah,
there.
and when we started doing the community grants, Corey, we broadband, yeah, it was a thought in our minds, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, it was such a big bite that we couldn't even begin to start to chew on, that's what we did with it. But now with all these federal funds have inflowed, I just like to keep this clean and making sure that it's being used for these, things that are related to it.
White Marsh Elementary School's got a pretty awesome TV room in there where they do the morning announcements and things like that. It'd be neat to see that MCTV gets expanded or have kids or after school. Of course, then you got to bus them to it. I'm just thinking that cable TV is kind of going to die out now that we're running broadband to everybody's switching to Netflix and things like
People
that.
watching this on YouTube.
Yes. Is it time to start thinking about getting rid of this and having a broadband?
So right now, so MCTV does, they broadcast, and they also turn them into YouTubes as well. So there is a migration happening.
It's
to your point.
simultaneously a cable channel and a streaming service.
Right, so, and that's an excellent, it complements what I was talking about, upgrading the studio so that it's not just a cable platform, that it's a internet.
It's both.
platform.
It's both.
Yeah.
Hey, the library request of the upgraded audiovisual stuff, would that be a use? Instead of using general fund dollars for the library request, could we use funds like this for the types of requests we get to upgrade things like that? Seems to
Sure.
fit.
Sure. I mean, there's
Potentially, and we're proposing to do half of that through ARPA too.
yeah. I don't think these were restricted funds.
No, they're not restricted, but if we could stay in the same realm, the same usage, audiovisual,
It's just that when we
communication.
first looked at discussing these funds, they were to try to get them back into the community in some way.
Yeah, I sent an email. I don't know if you saw that or
But
not.
Pete's right. There's lots of ARPA funds for the community right now.
And I don't have my ARPA list, so I don't know when we're going to talk about that.
Don't worry about it.
Are we done with this?
Not yet.
No, we haven't made a decision.
Can we consider the library request? Can we consider the library's request for AV out of these funds?
Teen court.
Well, that's on the
Teen
table
court.
for ARPA.
I would leave this.
What's your recommendation?
My recommendation is that you approve this, accept this, and understand that we have the opportunity to vet projects and bring it back to council for approval.
As
And
needed.
there's money here to be used for those projects when we bring them to you.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Right,
Moving on.
so,
Would that be okay?
Let's move on.
as part of the discussion though,
Okay.
I gave you the MCTV budget for review.
Hold on. Let me dig through this pile.
It
That's
was right
before this, right before this.
Hold on my recommendation, hold my.
Yeah, hold your recommendation.
Changed.
And let me dig.
I'd still like to consider that library request out of these funds.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, they are asking for, a little bit, they're asking for about $10,000 more than they had asked for last year.
Sure.
And it's related to capital outlay. And, they gave us a copy, a list of,
Detailed with.
Is it in here?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it
I have
is
to
in
dig
there.
in here and get them.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No problem.
Yes, it is in there. And they, again, it's in priority order, just as,
And this does, and that list does help them get to where we were talking about.
All this for just $19,000?
Well,
They go to radio.
keep in mind that there were $3 and $8 parts in here, so they're a little bit in the weeds.
They got a three-page list.
I support the $3 and $8.
I'll wait for some big number at the back of it.
Let's say yes to this. This looks like an easy yes.
Council, you support.
I just have one question.
I got a thumbs up from Frank.
I mean, and look, this,
Question.
yes, I'll show you
I got
this.
3.
My opinion, this money
Yeah.
is to back them.
Yeah.
So as long as their request doesn't exceed what they have, what we have, fund them.
Yeah,
Fund them.
agreed. I agree.
May I ask a question? The items that are going towards their capital outlay, each year, is it just for MCTV or does it do something for the Avalon and the theater itself?
MCTV. And we've
Just
been
that.
pretty clear on that, and we will reaffirm it to make sure, but yes, it is MCTV.
Yeah, there is, they don't even seem to charge an administrative overhead for MCTV. They're eating the administrative overhead for MCTV.
Mhm. Okay.
And I'm not sure that that's right, but that's the way we are right now.
So
We done with this pack?
are we done? Can I go back to my recommendation?
Sure.
So the cable TV franchise fees. Council, we have this money available. We can bring projects to you with regard, and you can approve projects against the money that's in this budget. And that includes the library, if that's where we want to go with that.
Without making a decision tonight.
Without making that decision today.
I'm with
The
you.
money's available. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Everyone's good with that.
When we get to that point, I'm going to say it needs to go to broadband, but I'm fine with not designating it tonight.
Okay. That's right.
All right.
As long as you got $500,000 for grants, I'll support your, as long as I can get the grant money out there, I'll support it.
Got you covered.
Where are we going now,
We're
Joy?
we're going to impact fees.
Impact fees.
That's at the front.
Right on top, look at that. I knew it was coming
Oh,
next.
you have that one page. That's one page.
Because I ran in the parade, I tell you. I've been right here till part.
Really.
You listen to that song, we don't talk about Bruno? You heard it, Frank heard it. Frank got kids, he heard it.
So
Oh, look, more library money.
we have we prepare a annual report for council every year. This is a draft of the first page. As well as we have the details associated with that. Okay, all right. So impact fees. At the end of fiscal year 21, we had a pretty significant balance. And so we plan to spend that down in fiscal year 22. And we had a large project included in the expenses for Goldsboro Neck Airport Road, $700,000 allocated to that. The bulk of the,
What are you reading off of? You're supposed to grab another piece of paper.
It was the top page.
Oh,
It
this
is back.
top page, it said impact fee.
there's 700,000 in the 1,315,000. That's why that number's so big.
On the very top page?
Says impact fee annual report. Go Russell.
Not the very top page.
Yeah.
She's saying this.
Okay, I'll number these things from now on.
It'll be nice.
Nobody saw 700, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, mine were up here, I guess. That's all right. That's all right. Keep rolling. Yeah, keep rolling. That's all right. There we go.
Okay,
Eh,
all right, we're all on the same page now. Okay. So again, we're spending, we allocated 1,315,000 for projects for fiscal year 22. The balance dropped, the closing balance, we estimate to be about $863,000. Our impact fees for fiscal year 22 have been, most categories have been coming in up. They look like they're close, either at or close to budget for revenues, except the Easton related ones are off this year. So general government and transportation Easton is down. And I talked to Miguel about that. He seemed to think too that he hasn't seen as much activity come through his group.
In Easton? What part of town you hanging in?
Well, it's,
Everywhere you look, there's a bulldozer in Easton.
well, it depends. I think not all. He doesn't, we don't charge a fee for every project. though, right?
There's an impact.
Or,
It depends
well,
on which side of town is on.
so most
It's gonna
every
impact
project
something.
pays transportation, but not
Right.
every project pays community college. Not every project pays.
No,
Park
no,
and
no,
Rec.
but I'm saying in Easton, how, I mean, I can understand the government number going down in Easton, the general government number going down, but what side of town, that's down?
Almost like they build up so much that it makes sense to start building in trap.
And so,
He gonna get that in no matter what at the end of the night.
so the budget that is proposed for fiscal year 23 is mirrors what we proposed for 22. So if you can see that there are some categories that are coming in over budget for 22.
Mhm.
But again, general government's off and as well as Easton's off.
We need to dig, so we need
We
to
can dig into that. Yeah, we can dig
Figure
into it.
out why, just like Easton, 216.91, it dropped down, 365, 231,
Found
dropped to
that.
78. Yeah, so we have to maybe take a peek at that.
And it might be that the towns, like, they collect the impact fees and then they remit it over and then maybe there's some confusion. I don't know.
Gap in, receiving.
Yeah.
Really.
If Willie collecting, yeah.
We will dig into it.
All right,
But
We're being recorded.
so
he knows I said it, but I'm on.
anyway, so we're budgeting the same amount as we budgeted for 22. We're expecting then our expense budget that we're proposing is $615,000 for fiscal year 23.
Okay.
And it supports basically debt service for,
Past projects.
yes, past
Yeah.
projects. And you can see the details of that on the bottom left side.
Well, this is what impact fees are for, to,
Yeah.
pay that cost.
So the community center 65,000, what is that for?
Yes.
The big expansion of the community center, the, Y Oak room and all that stuff,
Is that what that's for?
the debt on that.
Okay. And the 54 for the library, is that the one up here? 'Cause we haven't done
That's
it- we haven't done
the
anything.
children's
Still-
room and
still
everything
paying
that they
off
did
up
over
there?
here.
And, okay, it's been, okay, for the school, that has to be,
Easton Elementary mostly, but also the high school roof.
yeah, the parking lot.
Actually, we didn't take on
No, we didn't
debt
take
for
on
the
the
roof.
roof.
That was
That's for the
paid out
roof.
of current expense.
So
So that's
what's the
parking
purpose
lot?
in leaving over $700,000 in the fund? If we're gonna get, if we're
so-
gonna have another $500,000 in revenues, why would we leave more than twice as much as we're using?
Don't have to. If we identify a project,
Well, I mean, can we do more towards the community center, more towards,
So that project, so we're talking about a real project, Old Bird Neck Road.
right, yes.
And this is a project, because that's a phased project, so I'm not sure whether that was for what Warren did, which I don't think. And the next part of that project is from where he had done the Workfield Road all the way down to Deliberations.
Right.
And those are projects we're trying to get easements for, and we're trying to move those projects.
Mhm.
I just want to be really clear about, that we don't interrupt the money flow to accomplish those projects. We need to take a look at that.
Okay.
so I guess, my question is, why are we leaving 773,000, only spending 615? Should we,
Well, I
if there's
guess,
more that- we're
so,
subsidizing that community center transfer. If there's debt on it, if there's more that we can do. Or the debt on the library.
well, I wouldn't want to spend it down to zero because there's always the
goodness.
risk that,
Not zero, but
yeah, the revenues don't come in,
You can start.
Yeah. right? But we can make an adjustment. We can use more of it.
yeah, another couple $100,000 maybe?
That's what
Yeah.
the council recommends.
Leave
Is the
500,000 or
615,
600,000 in it?
is the 615 representing the full debt service on those qualifying projects? It's a
No.
percentage of the debt service
Yes.
on this qualifying project.
Right.
Any reason not to use another $200,000 or $250,000 and leave about $500,000 in the fund?
I know that there are rules on what you're allowed to pay for out of impact fees. That only so much of a percentage of a project can be paid out of the impact fees.
That's correct.
And is that what's dictating the percentages that are designated here?
I will check to make sure that that's how the calculations were done.
So
But
can
I
we
don't
come
believe
back
so.
to you can we come back to you on this to see if there's any reason why we couldn't bring it down a couple $100,000 to 600,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I would ask, I mean, in the past, we have run much higher balances. We've held on to much higher balances and
Mhm.
Well, and Joy, there was a little bit of a reason for that. We didn't realize, I think there was several years, we just didn't really realize that we could use it for some of this debt service, like the parking lot on the school and things like that. So I think that's why it built up so much, if I'm remembering correctly.
Bring some clarity back on
okay, all right, so we will investigate and report back.
So look like, we look at the franchise fee balance of 413,000 and this balance of 772,000. Over $1 million.
We're not touching the
I know, no,
413.
I know, I'm with you on that, I'm with you on that, because you got my grant money over there now, in your ARPA
I
fund.
do.
So as long as you got my grant money, I'm with you. Okay. You haven't lost me on that.
So it's not listed, but I threw the task force budget in here.
Oh,
It's small.
I saw
It's
it.
small.
I saw it somewhere there. Hold on. The NARC task force?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Just stay from me.
So next week, we'll
I
put some
move
numbers,
to approve that. Do we need a vote?
the numbers on the pages. Or what she's getting ready to talk about it.
The narcotics task force,
That's a small budget.
It's just
20,000, 150 in revenue, 20,000, 150
Right.
expenditures.
Okay, have you all taken a peek at
Yeah.
it?
Good.
You okay with it?
Yeah.
You're okay?
I'm with it.
Okay.
They check in.
Laura, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, excellent.
All right, so you're done, right, for night?
I think so.
Did
Well,
you
so I
do
have
something
the
on airport?
budget here.
We'll do
Well,
it for.
so-
You got me for another 15.
Okay, we can look at the airport budget. I don't have their capital. I was hoping to have the CIP budget available, but I didn't get it. I got it from Micah today and had to look at it. Yeah. it's
We can cover
complicated.
that. We're gonna go to CIP anyway Tuesday, so we'll include that.
Yeah.
You know, we're breaking even revenues and expenses, huh?
Yeah,
5.1 million to 5.2 million.
that's an enterprise fund that we
to see
like,
it. That's where you like to see it.
in the black.
But actually, it doesn't appear like it is. Is that because they get all this extra grant stuff and it makes their expenses appear higher? Because if you look back at 2017, 2018, 2019, at the top of that page, 2020, almost every year, the expenses are higher than the revenues, but that's just a funky,
Is it like pending grant money coming in to pay out to reimburse some expenses? That's not normal with him.
right.
No, it's not, normally they're.
17.
grant Funds.
Am I seeing that right? 17? It's like 6 million all?
Is that because of we bought the,
Oh,
business center
there's
stuff?
the black.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Come out of nowhere.
Where's that? Where's the business?
They're right.
Which will be reimbursed.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
See, if you want to dig into this, we can pull Mike in.
I mean, look, this is almost break even.
So, yeah, why does it look like that? It shouldn't look like that.
Are you what year are you referring to for?
Yeah, I mean, I know that they always cover their I know they always cover their expenses and, you know, obviously
do.
they get 90% funding, but why does that top of the chart look like that?
So you're asking why the revenues are a little bit lower than than the expenses? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, even if you go back to 2017, it's like 9 million in expenses and 3 million in revenues. I mean, I know that they always cover their expenses. I'm just wondering why our sheets are reflective that way. And I think it has something to do with the 90% funding that they get from FAA and MAA.
Micah just said he's got another 1.2 million coming in. He's got 300,000 plus that other 900,000 grant that's on its way.
Right. So the current year might look a little weird, but I'm looking now back at 2016, 2017, 2018. Those should have balanced themselves out by now if we got our money from the feds and the state.
Yeah.
Those projects.
Well, I can dig into that and report back. You can go back in time.
I'm just trying to get Mike on the speakerphone here.
Okay.
But I don't know, he didn't respond quickly, so.
Well,
No, I was on the phone with him, Clay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. told him to-
You beat me. All right.
And he wasn't here back in those years. I mean, this is maybe an Angela Mike Henry question, you know. We should just make sure the books are reflective of what the funds actually were.
Okay.
Although, where's their revenue?
Okay.
So I will get a memo from
Okay.
Mike that explains the question, and we'll have that for you, and I will send it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well, that was all that we had to review tonight.
Okay. Yep.
Good job.
So that brings us 10 minutes shy of the allotted time. Yes, Frank?
I was just looking back at, so I've got 23, 22, 21, 20, and 19.
Mhm.
He is equals.
So I'm gonna put Mike on speakerphone, okay?
He's got 2.98 million extra that he has made.
Hey, I got you on speakerphone, Micah.
Yeah, sure.
So, Laura had a couple of questions for you. We were going over your budget.
Yes.
And of course, the initial reaction was, you run a pretty, good enterprise fund in the black. But there were some questions about what appears to be revenues not meeting expenditures in the budget as we look at it. And so Laura had a couple of questions about that. Laura, you want to go ahead? Can you hear Micah?
Micah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So just at the top of the page on 75.1, the top of your page, where we do the expenses and then we put the correlating revenues across from it. And I know that that can't be accurate. So why are the revenues looking like they're less than what the expenses are? Is that a delay in getting the grant funding from the state or the feds on those fees?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is for this year. We got really it's just under $1 million in a federal grant that is going to be back before June 30th. And
Right,
about
Micah,
300
go back to 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
And I
Very top.
just sent you that, Micah, so you can see it on your phone.
Okay. Let me see here.
Because by now those should have caught up. I mean, 2017 would be the most egregious at 9 million in expenses and 3 in revenues.
Yeah. So 17 was the business center. That was that year.
Okay.
Which called up. Let's see, that would have called up.
And we have a loan. You got a loan. The county gave the airport a loan for that business center, right? So that's the 6 million.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense on that one. But the other years are still several $100,000, and I just feel like our book should reflect it properly by then, or there should be a third column there, because that, for that one, shows that loan.
So Micah, why don't we do this? Why don't you take a look at this tomorrow and put
Okay.
together a memo for council that just brings clarity to it for them?
And we're talking about these past, really, you're just concerned about these past years. I mean, because looking at,
2022 is perfect.
Yeah,
But 2023 actually shows about $100,000 in expenses over revenues.
Right.
yeah, we don't, like I said, we got about 1.2 million that is still outstanding for this year. And 1 million of that is really from last year's expenditures. 300,000 of that is for the obstruction removal program. I'd really have to kind of look into Munis and actually answer those questions.
I mean,
And
I remember that Angela and Mike Henry would go around in circles where, you know, Mike would say, we're in the black, you know, we're meeting all of our expenditures, and Angela's like, oh, I don't know about that. And so I just think it needs to get cleaned up, because I understand a current year, there's going to be a delay in getting those funding from FAA and MAA and all that. But those past years, they ought to have balanced themselves out by now.
Yeah, you know, with the depreciation and all that in there, I mean, that really is, you know, that complicates the formula
Oh, that's
every
it.
year.
That's exactly it.
If you look at when you look in Munis and you see that, you know, there's just a note, and you know they took you know, $300,000 and slid it over here, you know, and the finance office does it, you know. So I mean, that is Angela's world and nobody really understood.
Now that you said that,
I'm
that's
very honest
that's
about
exactly right, Micah. That's what Angela did, because, you know, you get buy $100 piece of equipment, you got $90 from the FAA, but we've got to depreciate the full $100 on our books. So that actually is it.
Well,
Yeah.
except the expenses in this report don't include depreciation expense.
Right.
Huh.
So let's
Yep.
take a look at this, Micah, tomorrow, put together a memo for council that addresses this, and we'll provide that to them.
Okay, that sounds good. I will.
Okay,
All right. Thanks, Clay.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council, we'll come back to you with that and a memo that answers the questions. And we will come back, I guess, Tuesday night, if that's okay with you, and we'll do a heavier lift
Yes.
and press forward. And we'll make the adjustments to the sanitary fees as you directed and move ahead with the other
Yep.
items. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.